My fiscal plan is to allow the folks who are responsible for the jail to do their jobs. In other words, the sheriff's department, no matter what anybody else says, are basically trustees of the jail. The budget for the jail and the budget for the sheriff's department is in the sole purview of the Hinds County Board of Supervisors. Therefore, it requires a relationship with the Board of Supervisors. I think what I bring to the table in this equation is that I've established a very strong relationship with the Board of Supervisors of Hinds County, and I can certainly support that by saying I sit here as the appointed sheriff of Hinds County, appointed by the unanimous consent of the board. So to get 5 members to vote on my appointment is a Herculean effort in and of itself. But I think I can certainly convince them that we are in need of a new jail. And I already have talked to, in extensive conversation with the president of the Board of Supervisors, Crisler Calhoun, who has indicated they have found a funding source to build us a new jail. So we can continue to put the Band-Aid on this tumor if we want to, but at the end of the day, the citizens of Hinds County deserve a new detention center. Well, first of all, I will make sure that we have the oversight of those vendor lists and ensuring that there is a high degree of diversity in people who are bidding for these contracts, but more importantly, that they are local vendors. I think we have the talent in Jackson, Hinds County to be able to have vendors not only bid on these contracts, but secure these contracts. And minorities should be having an opportunity to be the prime on a lot of these contracts. So I'm committed to that. As a former city council president in the city of Jackson, that was one of my pledges to the community, and I certainly honored that pledge by ensuring that that happened at the city level, and I certainly will continue that effort at the county level. I think one of the wrong calls I made was in, I can remember it distinctly, April 3rd, 1993. I was the first one to go through the door serving a search warrant for crack cocaine. Ended up taking a shot in the chest at point blank range. In thinking about that again, I'd have been the second person to go through the door. But that being said, I thank God that I lived, first and foremost. I sit here some 30 years later, still committed to fighting this fight on the battlefield. I guess the reason why I asked you to repeat that, because the question is, what would I do? I guess a better way to answer that, what I'm already doing. Since taking this office some 60 days ago, the first calls I made to local law enforcement officers within the Tri-County area was to Sheriff Brian Bailey and Sheriff Randy Tucker. Obviously, Madison-Rankin County borders Hinds County, and we know that crime is not respecter of lines, county lines, city lines, or any other lines. I know back in the day it sounded good to say, you bet not come over here, you bet not do this. The criminals not listening to that anymore. Criminals gonna go where they feel like they have the best opportunity to get what they're looking for, okay? So if you have communities that have a high income level, they're gonna go to that community. So I think what we have to do is understand that we have to fight this crime situation in the metropolitan area cohesively and collaboratively. So Sheriff Bailey and Sheriff Tucker assured me that they are absolutely excited about working with the Hinds County Sheriff's Department to control crime within all of our counties and parishes. So I'm excited about that. I also met with all of the special agents in charge of the federal bureaus, that being the Homeland Security, FBI, DEA, and ATF. And all of them have agreed that they want to work closer with Hinds County, the capital county of Mississippi, to ensure that we can get a handle on crime in the area. So I believe in partnership. I'm already establishing those partnerships. I will make sure that I have deputies that serve on every federal agency as a task force agent to ensure that we have maximum support and maximum resources to fight crime in and around Jackson. Well, that's a great question. I'm certainly promoting a model that I teach at Hinds Community College. I've been an adjunct professor in criminal justice at Hinds Community College since 2005. And one of the greatest models ever developed by the law enforcement community has been a community policing model. What that means is we have to have a relationship with the community. What I want to do is ensure that my deputies are charged with ensuring to get out of the car and go meet and greet the community leaders within their areas of responsibility. In other words, it's very difficult to establish a relationship going 30 or 45 miles per hour past someone's house. You have to get out of the car, meet and greet them, ensure that you're on a first name basis with them. And I'm going to make that a written policy. And if I were to check with those community leaders and they're not able to tell me what their officer or deputy's name is, then I'm going to go see that deputy. And that deputy's going to have some explaining to do. But I believe the community police model works. I also believe the trust factor comes with ensuring that we treat our community and our citizens as what they are. They are our bosses. And I want to make sure that my employer gets the best type of treatment. And what that means is if they call in and file a complaint, my deputies won't be coming to their door to ensure that they actually filed a complaint. They're going to go to the source of the problem. So that's one of the, to me, in my experience over the last 30 years, has been one of the biggest problems with law enforcement. You should never go to the complainant's home to verify if they called or not. You can do that over the phone. And I've seen that happen too many times. And I'm going to hold deputies accountable if I ever catch one of them doing that. They're going to go to the source of the problem. They're going to handle the problem. They're going to give that complainant the confidence that every time they call, the problem will be resolved. Well, the good news about the sheriff's office is it is a law enforcement office. People don't really care about personalities. They don't care about how you make them feel. They want to feel safe. That's the only thing they care about. So what I'm going to do is keep the politics out of it, is keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is putting models and plans, crime-fighting plans together to ensure that the constituency is safe, that they can sit outside on their porch and have a conversation with their neighbor, drink tea on the porch, and be comfortable having that drink tea without worrying about drive-bys or shots being fired in their neighborhood. So this is not a popularity position. People want somebody who is capable, competent, and certainly committed to making their quality of life better by keeping them and their families safe. So I think the politics is one of those things that is separated from a law enforcement position like the sheriff's office just by virtue of the job responsibility of the sheriff. I think the best way to answer that question is look at the three tiers of of criminal justice. Criminal justice is made up of law enforcement, the judicial branch, and then correctional branch. I think where the failure is coming in at is that we have not made it a priority to be tough on crime in the judicial branch of that system. I think we have to send a strong message to criminals that the terrorism, the domestic terrorism that is occurring at Payson and Jackson will not be tolerated. That means we need to stiffen the sentences. That means that we need to adopt the model of crime control. There are two models that govern criminal justice based on our data and teachings. And that is the crime control model and due process model. The due process model, I believe, has ran its course. The reason why I know that, because crime is escalating all over the country. That means that we're going to have to get tough on crime. That's where the crime control model comes in. That means law enforcement and the judges have to be in lockstep to send a strong message to the criminal element that we're not going to tolerate being terrorized in our community. That's the first thing. So we need stiffer sentences. Then we move to the correctional side of the house. The correctional side of the house has been broken for quite some time. The only thing that's happened in the correctional system from my vantage point is that we're running adult daycare centers. We're trying to make detainees and criminals comfortable in a jail setting. That should not be our first focus. Our first focus should be rehabilitation. And that rehabilitation should be from an educational standpoint. We should get these folks in these confined quarters, put them in a classroom setting, incentivize them getting some type of degree, a diploma, or something while they're incarcerated, meaning that they're using their times wisely to become more productive citizens. What that looks like is we should put together a GED program within the confines of the walls. And if, in fact, that a nonviolent offender obtains his GED or high school equivalency, they should be allowed to have some of their sentence reduced. Again, those are nonviolent offenders. And same thing, criteria with nonviolent offenders. If they get a vocational or technical degree while incarcerated, more time should be shaved off their time. I think that incentivizes them going into a school, a classroom setting, and getting those type of certificates. But the main thing from that does is it gives them opportunity to earn a living wage once they get out of the prison. Therefore, they cannot have to decide whether I need to commit criminal acts in order to live. So I just think that we should be better about rehabilitation. And from the judicial, that's in the correctional side, and the judicial side, we need to be tough on these sentences. As the current sheriff, I'm already working on that plan. That is a 21st century crime fighting plan. What that does is we're not even interested in anything talking about defunding the police. We need to be talking about reallocation of resources. So the budget that we have right now, we need to look at contractual opportunities where we bring in experts to deal with some of these issues that law enforcement officers for far too long have been asked to address, like mental health issues. Law enforcement officers are not mental health providers, but we do have partners in the mental health field that we should employ, bring them in and put them on staff to be able to deal with mental health crises. We also need to train our officers what to look for on mental crisis and mental episodes so they know how to address that on the front end. We also need to look at the healthcare industry as a whole and bring other assets in to join our ranks. And that's what we're doing right now. I'm making contact with mental health providers in and around the Jackson metropolitan area and also social services providers in and around Jackson. We need social workers and counselors added to our team. So when I say reallocation of resources, we need to bring in additional resources, both financial and human resources, to ensure that we're dealing holistically with the crime problem that's going on in our urban environment.